We have these structures of teaching from the Buddha, and many ways and means of trying to realize these teachings, what they're pointing to. And in terms of teachers, you have duck Ajahns and chicken Ajahns. Duck Ajahns, basically, they stride off to the pond, Nibbana, saying, "Follow me, guys," and they stride off. And you have to kind of quack along behind them, you see. They don't realise some of the ducklings have got broken wings, they've got holes in their webs, their ankles don't work very well. But they're saying, "It's straight ahead. What you need to do is be mindful, follow the breath, we'll get there." They say, but Ajahn, my breath, my The duck Ajahns got very clear, so it's quite admirable, because they know where they're going, but not necessarily where you're at. The chicken Ajahns spread their wings, and you cluster under them till you kind of cheap and you get warmed up and you feel comfortable, and then the idea is you're feeling comfortable and then you sort of go wriggling out and head off to the pond. Of course, they both have their deficits, because with a chicken Ajahn you can end up just sitting under the wings all the time. It feels nice and warm there. I'm a bit of a chicken myself. But, so I try to offer this servicing, healing, and recognising once you get more comfortable and more clear, there's a spirit that rises. You get some spirit rising, you think, "Oh yeah, I'd like to get out there. Yeah, I'm feeling good. These wings are getting a bit stuffy under here, let's get moving." That's up to you to do. When you feel ready for it, I want that to happen. I don't want to have duck chickens under my wings all the time. But essentially, just the recognition that we may have a pretty clear idea of the teachings, and obviously some admiration, inspiration, and yet, you think, "Well, it's funny, my mind doesn't seem to do that." And it's rather like, like you're trying to get to the door, and actually your sleeve is stuck in the door handle, and you can't, your foot's jammed, his foot won't fit in the shoe properly, so you can't get out, or your leg, you've got this pain in your leg and it won't work, and you've got, and when we look into the heart, we probably recognise there's certain things like, extreme exhaustion, fatigue, grief, various shocked areas, that make us make the heart uncomfortable. And when we consider the effects that this heart has to experience, and it means we're sensitive to everything that happens. We're sensitive to everything that happens. And there's a lot of pretty shocking, unpleasant stuff that we pick up, we're sensitive to. Obviously, you get the major ones: bereavement, abuse, physical violence done to us, grief, bereavement, or just the sense of being disregarded, not really given much warmth, sort of having to fight to get some attention, looked after, So, or even just you read the news every day, you go, "Oh God," oof, Or you go through a very dense urban landscape where people are not talking to each other, rushing signals, buses, lights flashing, ding, 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 things grabbing your attention. Nothing kind of comforting or warming or steadying or stabilizing, everything pressurizing, impinging, demanding attention, impact, stimulation, everything kind of sucking energy out. Everything sucking energy out. You get an energetic vampire effect where the energy is getting dragged out. Even though it's stimulated, it's still dragged out into sights and sounds and shops and do this and do that and buy this and go here and have one of these, all that kind of stuff. So all this draining, energetic draining, you get energetic abuse, you get energetic depletion. Energetic depletion is both you're actually overstressed, you're carrying too much emotional weight, too much burden, and the system doesn't know how to refresh itself, replenish itself, or it doesn't feel it doesn't have the time because we've got into the next important thing to do. So you get what I call sabotage programs, which means rather than look after yourself, do another thing. Rather than replenish, feel guilty about sitting around doing nothing and do something. And that's a sabotage program. It means you're already in a bad state, make yourself worse. And so these quite complex psychological programs. Performance programs, set up what we should be. You're always straining rather than appreciation of what's here, excessive attention to goal and performance criteria, which are always rising to fantasy levels. And so the system is strained, and in that sense also, if you can't make that, you're basically not to put enough effort, you're flawed, you're a mess, you're not capable. And this can be the job criterion, job experience, work experience, but it extends beyond that into, social interaction, how gifted are you, how talented, what kind of personality you have, and, are you accepted or not, or you have to do to be accepted. All this all takes energy to sustain it, and it doesn't actually replenish. Because it's all going out to this fantasy world. It doesn't recycle to the animate realm. You have the animate realm, which is the living, tissue, vibrant, here now experience. You've got the fantasy world, which is ideas, concepts, notions, maybe good ideas, performance standards, statistics, quotas, so forth. And abstract. And you just kind of, can you recognize how much fantasy there is? What's money? Can you eat it, drink it, shelter under it, wear it, breathe it? No. What is it? What is it? It doesn't even exist physically anymore. It's just numbers flashing around on the screen. That's a fantasy, isn't it? Your fantasy nationalities. And then if you, just notice sort of like how many movies are a complete fantasy. Marvel Universe, moppets, floppets, things bouncing around cute, warriors in epic sci-fi fantasies that people are getting some kind of message of, hey, this is the really bright, vigorous stuff, but it's generally a good amount of brutality goes on in it. It's headlines and media generally emphasize the aggressive and the highly activated states. Highly activated. And highly activated is something we can all do, and for noble causes, for worthwhile purposes, absolutely. But it doesn't regenerate. That uses energy, and every time you highly activate, you've got what should enter some kind of mode which can basically regenerate and replenish in order to top the batteries up, as it were. Right? That's an animate system does that. It activates and it deactivates, goes into a kind of a conscious rest mode, or a conscious low impact mode, in order to just know itself internalize, know itself, form itself, clean itself, refresh itself, and then it can go into activation again. And that zone is really, primary zone of meditation is ideally to do that bit, the replenishing, regenerating, has to be an enormous part of it. Yeah. Now, this is kind of what samadhi is about, samadhi concentration. But unfortunately, the way that that's presented often comes across as another high performance that you've got to be good at. So we've done the same sort of thing. In meditation, it becomes another stressful performance, goal orientation fantasy. It isn't actually in touch with the animated reality that you're living in. So then you don't want to do it anymore, or you get tired, or you get stressed. Okay, so this, just getting some sense of the nature of the problem. Now, as I suggested, these primary template for satipatthana, very universal template for cultivation. And you have these 4 terms for satipatthana, mindfulness, establishing mindfulness with regard to kaya. I'll use the Pali words because I don't believe any translation ever really fully works. Kaya, Vedana, Citta and Dhamma. And kaya refers to the experience of the animated form, our body. But it's a living body. What I mean, it's not the one you see. That's part of it, but it's the lived-in body. Right? Establishment of the lived-in body, what it feels like, how it operates, how it breathes, how it tingles, it's warm, hard, tough, supple, fluid. Its mobility, its sickness, its health, its vibrancy, the living body. You're entering, so you come out of the conception, out of the fantasy, out of the mentally derived idea of a body, or what it should or does look like or doesn't, into the animated reality. And the second term refers to the degree of agreeable or disagreeable resonances that occur. Feeling. Well, feeling here doesn't mean emotion or sensing, it just means the degree of that which you like to stay with longer is agreeable, that which you like to make pass, or avoid, or close off, or get away from, disagreeable. And some is undetermined, it hasn't yet been established, it's kind of fluctuating, and it sooner or later lands in one of the other camps. Vedana. And Vedana is associated with the word Veda, which is the Indian term for knowledge. So it's that which makes something knowable. You get it. So if again we refer to animated reality, because you can know pi equals, whatever it is, because I've forgotten it. Something to do with circumferences and circles, but but actually the animated reality is a sort of a contact, impact. Oh, I got it. Oh, now in this kind of culture, you don't know something until you've had that. Oh yeah. The Vedana, that which allows you to know something, because you immediately it's immersed, it's impacted, it's infused. You've got it. Yeah, and something then is, as you get it, something resonates, something shimmers or opens or closes or urges or recoils. Vedana. The third satipatthana, citta, that which is affected by qualities such as love, warmth, aggression, fear, hostility, confusion. That which experiences a certain sense of being distracted, spun out, or contracted, hardened, tightened up, broken, fragmented, or scattered. Or that which appears as whole, comfortable, settled, unified. That which can experience qualities of sublime qualities such as bliss, joy, ease, comfort, loving kindness. It can be quite expansive, serene, citta. And so I've tended to not use the word mind for this, although it's a common translation, basically because mind tends to take me into my head. And my head never really gets those states. So it's more like when you look at something like where love and aversion and fear occur, it's to do with perhaps heart is closer. Dhamma means those phenomena that arise in that base. Phenomena arise in that base. So anger, grief, love, compassion, strong impulses, hesitation, wavering and havering, drifting around in circles, these kind of knowable phenomena. This is the four, and when the Buddha gave his instruction, he said you do this sitting, standing, walking or reclining. And you can do it eating, chewing, moving around, scratching, leaning, sweeping the floor. So that's the meditation. That kind of makes it quite open and also whole life, which I think is safest. We're not looking for special one-off experiences where the Kundalini flashes up into the crown chakra, although I'm ready for that, bring it on. But it doesn't happen when I'm sweeping the floor. And this is actually sort of like very kind of kitchen sink sane, grounded, and in a way it makes it less prone to various forms of delusion or projection or dissociation when you spin out. It's very much this: get your hands on the ground, get your feet on the ground, fellow chickens, we ain't going to move anywhere until we get that down. And in a sense then, one's got a fair amount of capacity within those frames of reference to really see what's needed, what the animated form feels settled with, the kaya, the living body, the lived-in body. These four, and the way they flow together without any real break, seems to indicate to me in theory, and certainly as I practice, that really they're rather like Russian dolls sitting inside each other, and the big one is the body. So it's obviously feeling, quality of agreeable, disagreeable can occur through bodily contact and also through emotional contact. So there's the link, isn't it? You can get disappointed or gladdened by something somebody says, or you can get impacted by a pleasant physical touch or an unpleasant physical touch or a disease. So the linking through feeling, you know something because it moves from body, feeling into the citta. So in this way, although we also recognize the Buddha talked to internally and externally, Body internally, body externally, feeling internally, feeling externally. This provides another very significant link and connection, because we can recognize, what does this mean? Body externally, that which we experience, something happening to my body from outside. Raining, heat, hot out there. Something, walking through some stinging nettles, lying on a couch, jumping into a swimming pool. Definitely external impact. And when that external impact happens, and it's known what occurs, you get a feeling, and what does that do? Right? So, it's raining, you shiver. Oh dear. And your mind goes, I better do something. And put a coat on. Jumping in the swimming pool. Oh, the water's brisk and cold, but really refreshing. So there's immediate transference from a physical impact to an emotional impact. And this occurs because the body internally, externally, has this skin impact upon that. Internally, it has qualities such as vitality. Internally, it has warmth internally. It feels tense or light, or bright internally. It feels stale internally. It feels vigorous internally. These are not things you can discern through the eye. They're not related to the external manifestation. They're related to the internal condition of the body. You feel sick and tired, and those experiences are very real and internalized. And it's those internalized experiences that relate directly to what happens in the heart. Okay? So we can be, moving around a place where there's fine, people not bothering me, it's a very pleasant day, and yet feel really horrible inside. Feel stressed, feel tired, feel horrible, unpleasant. And that has emotion. I feel saddened or depressed or confused. Okay? The internal experiences, and the untrained reflex is, well, go external. Have a cup of coffee, switch something on, go to the theatre, get an external hit that will somehow take away this internal effect. So tendency is then to layer more input from the external, which will have some internal effect, but it won't actually clean out the old effect. It will just put some paint on top of it. It will just, put some coating on it. So the old grudges and distress remain there, but maybe we've got a kind of bit of sugar coating on them from having watched Floppy the Bear punch somebody or something on television. And that's good as long as it lasts, and then of course it goes, because we haven't actually done this internal. So the idea is that the internal body really you have to has an effect on the heart, very powerful effect, and you have to when those effects are negative or distressing, you can't fix them externally. You have to fix them or do the repairing internally. And that's possible because the heart and the internal body, which is sometimes called the subtle body, or even the emotional body or energy body, because it's kind of has all those aspects to it. That's what we need to work on, repair, and we can use the somatic body, the subtle body, the internal body, to repair the broken heart, the bruised heart, the depleted heart, the saddened heart. Although we tend to take these emotions as purely or of a kind of immaterial reality to them, grief isn't something, it doesn't got a size to it, it's not a material reality. So we think, how can you deal with that in your body? your body's material reality. So how can you deal with grief or shock or through the body? Well, internal body is not a material reality, it's an energetic reality. So you don't deal with so much the topics of grief, but you deal with the kind of dented, compressed state that grief leaves you in, or the groundless state. We feel lost because something was very deeply we connected to has suddenly gone. We feel we've lost the root. So we get that gutted state. And often people use physical metaphors to describe these things: gutted, broken-hearted, on my back, pain in the neck, and probably other phrases that I won't use right now. Because these emotional qualities have definite, palpable effects that we refer to in bodily terms, because they do have an effect on our somatic presence. Yeah. Okay. Now it works the other way around, of course. If there's a heart is beautiful, comfortable, strong, and happy, the somatic body is also radiant and refined and subtle and uplifted. And that was, of course, one of the great signs that the people would see when they saw the Buddha or his disciples walking and thought, wow, you look fantastic. Even they're just wearing robes, rags, slept on the ground, and your skin is clear, your faculties are radiant, you have a beautiful bearing, composure. What are you doing? There was that apparent. So that subtle body is in the energy of the subtle body begins to become really quite apparent, both felt experience, and even people can detect it. Your presence is really steady and comfortable. It's no longer cloudy or fidgety or restless. So the two work together, the subtle body and the citta. Yeah. Now, how does this... So what happens when we get profound shock, for example, you jump out of your skin, you get a hole knocked in you. My grandmother passed away, I felt like I just got to knock my guts out. Huh? What happened? There was some kind of breakage. You're always telling the truth. Just the language doesn't necessarily work. But you're always telling the truth of what you're experiencing. Yeah? The sense of burden and weight. Yeah. What happens? Somehow the somatic, the subtle body, has been some kind of shock or pressure that has almost like you've sprained an ankle, or you've torn a tendon in your knee, or you've damaged a disc in your back. It's shaken. It's shaken. If you put pressure on it, it just gives up. You can't put pressure on it. Yeah. So, and these things, extreme example is trauma, which is, to some degree, I think trauma is very widespread in perhaps in not such acute degrees, but there's areas which almost like get shut down because they're just carrying too much stress and shock. It's like a torn ligament, and what happens is that if that can't be repaired, is the body kind of excludes it, like the energy no longer goes there, so you lose something. It's like you can't go to that area. As we know, in terms of psychology, you have such a painful memory that you don't want to go there. Or if you go anywhere near it, your mind starts jumping. Similarly, the body, the subtle body, the same sort of thing. And So that every time something is, like if you look at something like the nervous system, how many thousands of fine wires, subtle wires are over it, and that isn't even the entirety of the nervous system. A lot of it is just almost like Bluetoothing through the tissues. So all these incredible subtle connections that are keeping us whole, get impact and get ruptured. And generally they will heal if they're put into a healing situation. If they're not, they don't. And what happens is you lose that bit, or the energy no longer flows down that bit. And you feel, I'm okay, sort of. Yeah, I'll get by. Of course you can. You can get by on one leg, but if you don't need to lose it. And this isn't necessarily about, doesn't manifest in terms of a limb disappearing. It manifests mostly in terms of a numbing effect, or a contracted effect, or a tense effect, or a jittery. If you're suddenly can't rest, something that in the system loses that. Because one of the overall effects of the subtle body is this ability to discharge the stress. So it's received an impact, things have got knocked about a bit, things have been highly activated, and then you get something called the parasympathetic system, which overviews the whole system and goes, oh, right, now let's just shut down, or just take it down and feel the whole system. Everything connects to itself, Okay, whole system, everything's connected, right, look around, fine, end of stress, rest, okay, everything's here, and fine, come back. So the parasympathetic acts as the discharge, and it refers to the whole system, which is everything in the body. Now, if the shock or the impact or the loss has been so great or so long term, what happens is you don't get the whole body. You don't get the whole thing. You get a good percentage of it, but somewhere in the pit of your belly doesn't get it. Somewhere in the back of your throat doesn't get it. Somewhere doesn't get it. So it doesn't discharge. It's left out, and then you get residual, fluttery, agitated, restless states come out of these areas that have not been able to discharge. We've never really been able to totally. Every time you halfway get through that, you think, right, better get on with something. Or feel uncomfortable now, I feel a bit nervous. Yeah, I'm fine, but I just feel reluctant. What's happening, Whereas if I start to rest too much, I feel guilty, I'm not doing enough. I think of the things I've got to do. Or I think of the things that bother me. Or the memories that are painful. Or images of myself that I feel disgusted by or disappointed by. Suddenly, all this psychological poison starts coming in. I mean, you get activated in order to get away from it. Where does that poison come from? Why do, when we sit still, maybe, you start to have bad ideas about yourself? Why does that happen? It's all the damaged stuff that hasn't been discharged is now speaking. So a friend of mine lives on a canal boat, and he says, canal boat, it's just what's happening? Nothing. A few ducks quack by, you're a train somewhere in the distance, fine, nice place. But no people can't stand it. Because so there's one guy, he sits on the boatyard, he's walking around, he's got speakers on his ears, has got constant input. He chats away. As soon as he's done anything, he's talking to himself, and he starts talking to everybody who comes along. And he's got something like that, and he opens the door of his boat. It's a huge whiff of marijuana comes flooding out of the boat. So the guy is constantly held together by continual impact of something. Imagine switching that off. What would happen? You know? Because it's like an internal body that's never been cleaned or discharged. And who knows? Because if it gets too difficult, we don't go there anymore. You know, so I'm feeling fine because I'm switching that on and fishing that on and drinking this and eating that. And I'm fine. What happens when the music stops? Well, that's enough of that. Because then the internal body starts to, because there's no longer this sensory impact, the internal body becomes apparent with all its kind of bruises and numb places and lost places where it hasn't really been held in love and health and wholeness. Oh well. We get through. Amazing. But for, so just a sense of service to one's citta, which has to receive everything. And also, this is the source of your inspiration, your ideas, your wishes, what you want to be, where you want to go, who you want to hang out with. That's all going to come from your citta. Your sense of self-esteem, respect, love, so forth, that's going to come from your citta. Yeah. And enlightenment's going to happen there. It's worth cleaning the place up, isn't it? And rather than go, oh dear, my mind's a real mess and what I can do with all this, which is another sabotage program, say, don't go there yet. Use the subtle body, because the subtle body, unlike your thinking mind, will not complain. It will not criticize. It will not say you are this. It doesn't do that. It's just like if you cut a finger, the body doesn't say, you idiot, you cut your finger. It just gets around the healing. It just does it. So if we're able to connect the subtle body to the citta, that will do the healing. The main principle is fully connect and connect to the whole body, wholeness, sitting, standing, walking, reclining. In some ways not too refined really, it's not too narrow a focus, it's not a 5-minute job, but it's livable. And if we can keep returning to that, we've got a good initiate the process of constantly refreshing, cleaning, regenerating, so that our citta is capable of realizing its full potential for freedom, release, compassion and joy.